They laughed because he laughed first. Their eyes followed his cue. And I stood there. Not broken. Just erased. He turned me into a joke. And I let silence be my answer. They say shame fades. They lie. It just gets quieter. But what they never saw, what he couldn't even imagine, was how that moment wasn't the end of my story. It was the fire that burned the pages, so I could write new ones. My name is Ava Sinclair. I'm 27, and I live in Portland, Oregon. I used to believe in quiet love. Not the dramatic kind, the one that floods your phone with texts or demands answers at midnight. No. I dreamed of something gentle, the kind of love that would see me without me having to scream for attention. Growing up in a small town outside Portland, I wasn't exactly the girl people expected to become someone. My parents, both teachers, hoped I'd pursue something secure. Nursing maybe. Or accounting. Something with benefits and no surprises. But I was always a little different. I'd sketch on the back of math tests, write poetry in the margins of notebooks. My dad once said, "You've got your head in the clouds, Ava." And I remember answering, maybe the clouds are the only place people listen. In high school, I was quiet. The kind of quiet that made people mistake you for boring. I wasn't boring, I just felt too much to say it all out loud. And then I met Liam Hayes. He was loud in all the ways I wasn't. The kind of guy who made teachers laugh in the middle of a lecture, who high-fived strangers, who remembered everyone's birthday. People orbited around him. Naturally, so did I. We started talking during senior year. Nothing major at first. Shared glances. Small jokes. Then longer texts. Study sessions that turned into late-night conversations. He made me feel like I was seen, not just looked at but really seen. For once, I thought maybe I didn't have to be loud to matter. We didn't make anything official. He liked to keep things low-key. At the time, I thought it was romantic. Private. Ours. He said things like, "I just don't want drama. You know how people are. We know what this is. That's enough." But I started noticing the way he acted around his friends, especially when I walked into the room. The shift in his energy. The sudden distance. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I wasn't fun enough. Maybe I was too emotional, too intense. I toned myself down, laughed when I didn't feel like laughing, gave him space even when I needed closeness. Then came the party. It was a spring night. College had started to wear on everyone: midterms, drama, the pressure of pretending to be okay. Someone hosted a bonfire just outside the city. I wasn't even planning on going, but Liam had asked me to show up. When I arrived, he was already there, drink in hand, surrounded by his usual crowd, athletes, theater kids, the loud ones who always had a story to tell. I waved at him. He looked at me, smiled briefly, then looked away. An hour in, someone made a joke about couples. I wasn't even paying attention until I heard my name. "So what about you and Ava, huh? Something brewing there?" He laughed. Loud. Unapologetic. And then he said the words that would echo in my head for weeks. "Ava? Nah. She's just a friend. Chill, man. Don't flatter her." The laughter that followed was cruel. Not because it was loud, but because it didn't hesitate. I felt the heat rush to my face. I didn't even know where to look. My hands were shaking, but I tried to act cool, like the joke didn't bother me. Like I hadn't just been dismissed in front of people I once called friends. I left before midnight. Didn't say goodbye. The next day, I waited for a text, an apology, an explanation. It never came. Instead, mutual friends started treating me like I was overreacting. One even said, "It was just a joke, Ava. You're taking it way too seriously." Another whispered, thinking I couldn't hear, "She got attached. That's on her." And just like that, I became the girl who couldn't take a joke. The one who caught feelings. The one who embarrassed herself. My family noticed something had shifted, but they didn't ask. Mom would say, "You've been quiet lately," but her voice carried more judgment than concern. Dad stayed silent, like maybe if he ignored it, it would go away. The worst part? I didn't even cry, not then. I numbed myself so well, I couldn't feel the betrayal. Couldn't feel anything at all. I stopped going to gatherings, stopped posting online, stopped replying to texts. It wasn't a conscious decision. I just faded. It was like watching your own life from a distance, realizing no one's looking for you. No one noticed when I stopped showing up. Not even him. Rock bottom doesn't come with sirens. It arrives quietly, like forgetting your own laugh, like not recognizing your handwriting anymore. For weeks, I floated. I'd wake up, check my phone out of habit, and find silence. No notifications. No missed calls. No, just checking in. I deleted Instagram. Turned off read receipts. My world shrank to a studio apartment, a growing pile of unwashed dishes, and the faint hum of my laptop fan. It was during one of those hollow days where even brushing my teeth felt like an accomplishment that I saw the listing. Volunteer Digital Literacy Assistant, City Library Senior Center. No pay. Just 2 hours a week. Teaching seniors how to use smartphones and email. It felt harmless, like something that wouldn't hurt if I failed at it. I applied on a whim. The next Thursday, I showed up in jeans and a sweatshirt, no makeup, hair tied back in a lazy knot. I was still half numb, but the woman at the front desk, Janice, smiled so kindly it startled me. You must be Ava. They'll love you upstairs. Upstairs was a bright room with round tables, foldable chairs, and people who wore cardigans with mismatched buttons. A man named Harold asked if I was the tech girl. I nodded. The first few sessions were chaotic. Passwords forgotten. Phones set in airplane mode for weeks. Tablets with 27 open browser tabs. I tried not to feel impatient, but something was different here. They weren't laughing at me. They were just trying to connect. Then came Dolores. 81. Red lipstick, pearls, and a stubborn flip phone she called Lucille. She was fierce, funny, and didn't care for that Google fella. She didn't like me at first. You look too sad for someone so young, she told me, her voice sharp but not unkind. Life already got you, huh?
I didn't know what to say.
I smiled politely, pretending not to understand. Week by week, I helped her switch to a smartphone. She hated it, said it made her feel like a toddler in traffic. But she kept showing up. One Thursday, she arrived early. Sat down with Lucille 2.0, her new iPhone, and said, "Okay, teach me how to FaceTime." We spent 40 minutes just adjusting the camera. She kept aiming it at the ceiling fan. I almost gave up. But then, her son answered. Her eyes welled up. Miles.
Ma?
Wait. Oh my God. Is that you? She covered her mouth. Her hands trembled. You look tired, she whispered.
He laughed.
You look beautiful. She didn't speak for a full minute after that call ended. Then she looked at me, really looked, and said, "You didn't just fix a phone. You brought my baby into my living room." I didn't know I was crying until a tear hit the screen. That night, I walked home slower than usual. The wind felt softer. The streetlights looked like warm halos instead of harsh interrogation beams. Something inside me clicked, not loudly, but like a light being turned on in a forgotten room. I kept going back. Soon I was doing more than helping with phones. I started a small blog for caregivers of seniors, Heartwire. Just stories, tips, gentle encouragement. No expectations. Just truth. At first, maybe 5 people read it. But I didn't care. Because for the first time in months, I wasn't waiting for someone else to see me. I was seeing myself. The numbers didn't matter. The metrics didn't matter. Dolores mattered. Harold mattered. Every confused, frustrated, sweet, stubborn person who walked through those doors mattered. And somehow, helping them helped me stitch myself back together. It didn't make headlines, but it mattered. By the end of that year, I wasn't just a volunteer anymore. I'd been hired part-time by the library, then contracted by a local nonprofit to develop a citywide senior tech literacy program. We called it Connect Age. Simple name. Quiet mission. Huge impact. In 6 months, we had partnered with 11 community centers, and by the start of the next year, we were onboarding nearly 1,400 seniors a month. We created video tutorials with subtitles and voiceovers. We built guides with pictures instead of paragraphs. We taught people how to FaceTime their grandkids, refill prescriptions online, report scams, and access emergency alerts. It wasn't just teaching tech. It was teaching independence. The blog I started, Heartwire, grew with it. We introduced a newsletter with tips, stories, and small bursts of inspiration. I watched the email list grow to 9,000 subscribers. Our open rate was 76%. That's higher than most Fortune 500 marketing campaigns. But we weren't marketing. We were reaching people who needed connection. We even received a small grant. I remember standing in a community center with the mayor's assistant, cutting a ribbon with those oversized novelty scissors, pretending not to tear up when they thanked me. Still, none of that made it home. Mom would ask, "So, still doing that computer stuff with the old folks?" And I'd nod, smile, change the subject. Dad, ever the pragmatist, once offered, "You should think about going back to school, Ava. This won't last forever." I wanted to scream. Not because I needed applause, but because I had poured everything into something meaningful, something alive, and they still saw it as temporary, like a phase or a filler job. At Thanksgiving, when relatives asked what I was up to, my cousin Julia, who worked in corporate PR, cut in before I could speak. "Ava does some kind of tech help thing for seniors, right? It's sweet. Very noble."
Sweet.
Noble. As if I were volunteering at a bake sale. I smiled. I always smiled. I wasn't doing this to prove anything.
But still a part of me ached.
Ached to be seen, not for recognition, but for truth. People online began to notice, though. Our community page was flooded with messages. Seniors posted photos with their first text messages. Grandkids emailed to say, "Thanks for helping Grandma join our group chat." One day, a woman wrote, "Because of your video, I was able to order groceries online when I couldn't walk after surgery. You saved me." I read that line 5 times. Another wrote, "My mom passed last night, but before she did, she FaceTimed all of us. She said she loved us. That only happened because of you." That one I printed, folded, kept in my wallet. The irony? The people I once craved validation from are now the quietest. Liam still followed me on Facebook. Occasionally liked a post. Never commented. Mutual friends remained silent. Some even unfollowed.
I didn't reach out.
Didn't try to explain what I was doing. Because I had finally learned the loudest people in a room aren't always listening. And the ones who listen, they don't need to be loud. Still, every now and then I'd wonder, did they ever regret it?
Did he?
Not that it mattered anymore. But some questions echo, even when they stop hurting. And despite everything I'd built, despite the lives touched, the connections made, the community that was now thriving, in the eyes of those who once knew me, I was still that too sensitive girl who got weird after college. But I kept going, kept growing, not for applause, but because something inside me had finally bloomed. And once it bloomed, there was no going back. The invitation came through a DM. "Hey, Ava, big fan of Heartwire. Would you be open to speaking at our Tech for Good panel next month?" It was from Sarah Delgado, a community advocate I deeply respected but had never met. She'd read the blog. Said my work was humanizing tech. I said yes. Immediately. The event was in Seattle, held at a converted industrial loft with string lights and beanbag chairs, and enough cold brew to energize a city. I wasn't a natural speaker. My voice trembled during rehearsals. My palms sweat through the mic check. But I reminded myself, it wasn't about performance. It was about people. The night of the panel, I wore black slacks and a linen shirt. My hair was in a simple braid. I didn't try to be someone else. I just showed up as me. The moderator introduced me. Ava Sinclair, founder of ConnectAge and Heartwire, bridging the digital gap for thousands of seniors across Oregon. The audience applauded. I stepped up.
Took a breath.
I used to think connection came from being seen. But I've learned it often starts with seeing others fully, without distraction. I told them about Dolores and Lucille. About Miles and the FaceTime call that changed everything. About how loneliness hides in plain sight, and how technology, used gently, can be a bridge instead of a wall. I don't remember every word, but I remember the silence in the room. The kind that means they're really listening. Afterward, people came up to thank me.
Some wanted to help.
Others wanted to share their stories. One woman, maybe in her 30s, clutched her phone as she approached. "You don't know me," she said, "but your site helped my dad."
She paused.
He was diagnosed with Parkinson's last year. He lost so much independence. But someone at his care home shared your tutorial on voice commands. Now he FaceTimes me daily. She smiled through tears. He said, "Tell that girl, I remember her voice." It didn't sound like pity. My chest tightened. Before I could respond, another voice joined in.
Deeper.
Familiar. "Wait, that's you." I turned. And there he was.
Liam.
His hair was shorter.
Jaw more defined.
He looked older, more tired somehow, but still unmistakably him. He stepped closer, blinking as if trying to reconcile what he was seeing. "Ava, you're her?" I nodded once.
Didn't speak.
He let out a breath, almost a laugh, but not from amusement, from disbelief. I've been seeing this everywhere. My sister forwarded me your blog last month. I didn't even connect the name. The woman looked between us, sensing something unspoken. She gave a polite nod and moved away. Liam's gaze lingered on mine. "This is what you've been doing?"
Yeah.
All this time. I could tell he was trying to bridge the gap with his eyes. But it was too wide. Too long. Then, to my shock, he turned to the people around us, strangers still hovering nearby. "I just want to say something," he said, raising his voice slightly. "I knew Ava a long time ago, and I didn't treat her the way she deserved. Not even close." I froze. Back then, I thought being cool meant pushing people down, making jokes, laughing when I should have spoken up. I was wrong. The room shifted. Conversations quieted. I was wrong about a lot of things, but mostly, I was wrong about her. And then, in front of everyone, he apologized.
"I'm sorry, Ava. For the party.
For the silence. For pretending you didn't matter." My throat tightened. I felt every pair of eyes flick to me. But I didn't flinch.
Didn't cry.
I just looked him in the eye and said softly, "Thank you." Not for him.
For me.
For the girl who once swallowed her worth just to stay in the room. People clapped. Not for the drama of it, but for the truth of it. Because it wasn't a spectacle. It was a reckoning. And I hadn't asked for it. I hadn't planned it. But the moment arrived anyway. Not because I demanded attention, but because the truth walked in by itself and refused to stay quiet. The art show was already buzzing when I arrived. Lights danced across white walls, glasses clinked with soft chatter, and people stood in clusters admiring the work I had poured my soul into. My first solo exhibition. And it wasn't just a gallery, it was my voice finally framed, finally seen. My collection was titled, Uninvited Reverence. Each piece was born from a scar I had once tried to hide. I was standing near one of the largest canvases, one that bled shades of heartbreak and gold, when I heard his voice. "Ava." I turned. Liam. He looked different. Not in the way people age, but in the way people soften. His jaw wasn't clenched like it used to be. His confidence wasn't arrogance now. It was wrapped in something unfamiliar. Humility. "I saw the flyer online," he said. I had to come." I offered a polite smile. "Glad you did." But he didn't walk away. He lingered. Nervous. "Ava," he said again. "I need to say something. I've needed to say it for a while." People were beginning to notice.
I was used to eyes on me by now.
But this moment felt like a spotlight. Hot and heavy. Liam took a breath. Then another. And then, right there, in front of collectors, strangers, journalists, and artists, he said it. "I'm sorry." Louder than he needed to. Clearer than I expected. "I'm sorry for humiliating you that night. I thought I was impressing my friends by making you small. But it was the most cowardly thing I've ever done." The room got quieter. Some turned their heads. I didn't stop him. "I didn't deserve you. You showed up with heart, and I met you with ego. And then, I watched you rise. Quietly, bravely. And I realized, you weren't too much. I was too little." My heart didn't race. It didn't ache. It simply listened. He looked at me then, fully, eyes glistening. I don't expect forgiveness, he added. I just needed you to know. I see now. I see you now. And for a long second I said nothing. The Ava he knew would have cried, would have asked why, would have begged for the closure I thought I needed. But this Ava? She smiled.
Softly.
I forgave you a long time ago, I said. But not for you. For me. The applause came not from sympathy, but from strangers who understood the weight of healing, who had seen the transformation hanging on every wall. Liam lowered his gaze. Thank you, he whispered. Then he stepped back, not as a man in love, but as a man who had finally understood what love was supposed to look like. And I turned away to greet the next admirer of my work, my power, my story. That night, as the gallery lights dimmed and the last of the guests slipped into the quiet evening, I stood alone with my paintings. The room echoed with memories, not just of the night's applause, but of all the moments I thought I'd never survive. Each canvas felt like a closed chapter. Each brushstroke had carried a secret I once held in silence. I glanced at the plaque beside my favorite piece, the one inspired by the moment Liam left me in the parking lot. The piece was called, Let Them Laugh. A swirl of crimson, shadow, and gold. A single silhouette, spine tall, surrounded by faceless figures, their mouths open in mockery, while she walked through fire without burning. Someone had written a comment on the guestbook under it. This moved me. I saw myself here. I smiled. You see, somewhere along the way, this stopped being about Liam, or even about that night. It became about me, and the millions of girls like me who were told they were too much, too emotional, too intense, too real, who were laughed at, dismissed, ghosted, replaced, then expected to stay broken so others could stay comfortable. But we didn't. We created art from our ache. We wrote poems in the dark. We rebuilt our lives brick by shimmering brick. And sometimes, we even stood still, while the ones who rejected us watched in silence, as we became everything they couldn't imagine. Liam's apology didn't rewrite the past, but it reminded me how far I'd come without one. That's the thing about closure. It never really comes from the person who hurt you. It comes the day you stop waiting and start creating. And me? I created something priceless. Not just the paintings, not just the gallery, but myself. The version of me that doesn't need validation, revenge, or even the final word. Because when your existence becomes your comeback, you've already won.